losing weight, in my mind, is a very simple thing to approach, because every single human being on this planet, we all store fat for the same reasons, for the same physiological reasons, and that is it's a survival tool.
We are here with another amazing episode of the Resistingbeta podcast. Here are some questions I have for our fantastic guest today. So, how does lifting and strength and conditioning reduce anxiety? I've heard it impacting a lot of other things, but anxiety is something I haven't heard talked a lot about. So I'm excited about that. Which supplements are worth it and actually help us get lean and strong? And which ones are you kind of actually just crapping out your money? And how do we get through our body weight or muscle mass plateaus? And where do they come from? And how can we be pushed past them? So our guest today is going to help us navigate those questions. We have Will Ballanger here with us. Will transforms time-poor professionals into big, strong, lean machines without giving up the food that you love. So I'm excited about that last part because I love food. So Will's a Royal Navy senior physical training instructor and an online fitness coach. He's also a father, husband, and really is a proud advocate of hard work and passionate about fitness, myth debunking, and general strength and conditioning smarty pants. So, Will, I appreciate you being here, man.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Thank you very much for having me.
So, well, let's give the men a little bit of a Reader's Digest version of the bio I just ran through, so they kind of know a little bit about you, but maybe just kind of give us your story here so we can relate to you.
Yeah, no stress. So the one thing I'm glad you mentioned is the father and the husband bit, and the food, not giving up the foods that you love. I think that's very, very important. There are a lot of people out there looking to push their product on us, be it physical training instructors or be it the supplement salesperson. And, there's a lot of guys out there on social media eating out of these Tupperwares, and they've given up everything. There's no more sugar. There's no more alcohol. You're not allowed to live your life, or you're not allowed to have a life with a marriage and small children anymore. You've got to throw it all away to get in the shape that you want to get into. And so that I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's really what I'm all about. You did mention that I'm in the UK Armed Forces. I am indeed a senior physical training instructor in the Royal Navy. But yeah, aside from that, my passions are just helping people getting into shape without ditching any food, without ditching any alcohol, within limits. But I certainly enjoy a pretty stress-free life when it comes to my diet. And I've competed in bodybuilding and continue to do very well for a 37-year-old tired dad. I've got a 4-year-old who runs me around, and it's full on. But that's who I am, really. I won't delve too deep into the military career. It's not too exciting for everybody. But I just really believe in the hard work bit, working out hard, falling in love with physical training, falling in love with bodybuilding, CrossFit, whatever you're into, working out in your living room, eating what you want, like I said, within reason, still enjoy, your red wine in the evening or beer or whatever you're into, and having that balance, and being a father, being a husband, being a normal human being, and not falling into those pitfalls with the salesman crap and the pyramid schemes and the supplements, because it's all shit. Mm-hmm. And I just want to encourage people to just live happy, healthy lives and just get in shape sustainably, there's a lot of rubbish out there, a lot of salespeople, a lot of supplements, a lot of crap, and it's all super over expensive stuff. So, yeah.
So you had talked a little bit about your experience with anxiety and depression in your bio. So what has been your experience with that, and how have you navigated your way through that?
So I'm hoping that a lot of guys will be able to relate to this. My anxiety, I guess it was something that was a hereditary trait. I remember having anxiety for my whole life, on and off, but it came to a really big head. It exploded, and it was, panic attacks and real serious stuff. When I was failing to process stress, stress is part of life. The more you chase things down, the more you build your business or your career, and you have children, and you have a marriage, and you have money and life and health, and the more you do, the more stress you're going to get. But for me, my problem was I wasn't able to digest it properly. I wasn't able to eject one cassette, load the next, eject that one. I wasn't able to put things away and go to bed and sleep. So it's just building and building and building. And I know a lot of men will relate to this, because we are living in times where men are, they're holding the weight of the world on their shoulders to make money, to have a successful career, to be a father, to be a husband, to make the right moves in the eyes of society, as a father, as a husband. It overwhelmed me. It destroyed me. And then hand in hand with mental health, with anxiety, hand in hand comes depression. The body, the mind becomes very sick of dealing with that high octane fight or flight. Panic attacks at 3 o'clock in the morning aren't great fun. So it's then the low kicks in and depression kicks in. I stopped training. I was drinking far too much alcohol, way too much alcohol, real problem territory. But then I got to that point where I realized that there was no physician or psychiatrist in the world, or anybody sat opposite me that was going to help me. It had to come from within, had to come from me. And I was pretty angry. I'd lost my identity as a big, fit, strong, physical guy. I'd lost that. That was gone. So I regained it, baby step by baby step, just getting back in the gym, not very fit, not very strong, not very brilliant, but I slowly got it back, and I got my identity back, and I got my label back on me that I wanted to have on me, of being a strong, dare I say it in today's society, I'm going to say it, a strong alpha male. That's who I wanted to be. I wanted to be a strong, fit, forward, confident young man, because that had been taken from me by stress, which turned into anxiety, which turned into depression. So yeah, that's my story with it. And it's I think there are many guys I speak to. As soon as I open up and I tell them this story, and I tell them where I've been and where I'm going and mental health, it's amazing how many people jump right on in there, and they've been there, or they're there now, and it's rough.
So you had mentioned something that I think a lot of men can relate to, is the shifting or lost identity, right? Because I think that in our 20s or in high school, we were athletes, right? And then as you start to do more adult things like your career and having kids and that kind of stuff, sometimes that athletic identity fades, right? And we lose ourselves a little bit. And it sounds like that happened to you, mainly caused by stress. So what advice do you have for the men who are maybe in the muck of that right now, where they kind of have lost themselves physically, and that has an impact across the waves of their happiness and fulfillment, and obviously stress, and it almost like exasperates that problem. So what advice would you have for the men that are, in that moment right now, and in that identity, crisis, I guess I'd call it?
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's a dreadful, awful, lonely, terrible time. And it's not to forget as well that half the reason men suffer with mental health is because they are very unlikely to seek help until they are at the precipice of destruction, or in the worst cases, suicide. And that is the case. Guys do not want to come forward. I didn't want to come forward to tell anybody that I was suffering with an injury that you couldn't see. I'd be more than happy to tell you right now if I had an ACL rupture. I couldn't care less. Yeah, hey, check out my cool plastic boot I've got. I'm not going to squat for 6 months. That's great. I've damaged my knee. That's that. But I felt very ashamed of coming forward and telling people, especially as a military physical training instructor, to tell people that I couldn't take it, that things were challenging in my life. that was pretty rough. So the advice I would firstly give to any men out there now who are struggling with their mental health, particularly stress-related anxieties, is seek help before you reach the panic attacks at 3 o'clock in the morning phase. Doesn't matter whether you are in the military or whether you're a CEO or whether maybe you just work a 9 till 5, or maybe you don't work. Maybe, you take care of your domestic bits and look after the kids. Doesn't matter. Work is just work. Nothing is as important as your health. So seek help before it gets rough. And you certainly know when it's getting momentum. There'll be a point where you'll know that things aren't great. And sometimes it might not be anxiety. It might not be panic attacks. It might be that, you're just drinking alcohol every night. That one glass of wine on the weekends turned into one every night, maybe a little bit more. Maybe you're involved in drugs, substance misuse. People definitely need to just have the courage to acknowledge, this isn't great. It's not going in a good direction. And I know this is easier said than done. There's probably a lot of trapped people who are going to be listening and thinking, yeah, I'm cool. I don't mind drinking every night. I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. And I'm afraid there's not much we can do. But yeah, seek help. You have to. You can't slay the dragon on your own. And once you've sought help, it's almost a confession, and then you can look at slaying it, maybe on your own later on. But you gotta do something. You gotta take action. So
I think
that's the big piece.
A lot of men struggle because they associate weakness with help, right? For sure. If they have to ask for help in something, then it makes them look weak, right? So then we'll bury it deep down and rub some dirt on it and hope it gets better, or like you had talked about, men will numb it. They'll take that pain and numb it with, you mentioned alcohol, drugs. It could be porn. It could be work. It could be any number of things. And if that stuff is stretched out long enough, then self-destruction starts to creep in, and if you've gotten too far down that rabbit hole, then depression can be a real life-threatening thing, So that help is important.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember like when I was going through my divorce, I had never done therapy before, and therapy for men has this odd association with it, like you're broken, right? But we're perfectly fine with hiring a nutritionist. We're perfectly fine with hiring a personal trainer. But when it comes to like the mind, for some stupid reason, we don't believe in seeking help to train our minds, right? Which is really unfortunate. So when you sought help, what did that look like for you?
So when I sought help, it really was just as simple as reaching out to someone that I knew I could trust, and that was a friend of mine at the time, who was just with me where I was in that particular part of the world and in that part of my life, and immediately I was able to sort of get some sort of validation and sort of reassurance. And like I said previously, more often than not, guys these days will often return fire with some sort of story of their own, and they'll talk about maybe some sort of problem they went through themselves, and that almost reassures you that you're not weak, that you're not just buckling, whereas you think every other man would stand tall. And that's what I did. I just told someone I could trust. And then after that, I decided to go down the physician route and see my doctor and all of that good stuff, the usual sort of processes. But yeah, it was just speaking to someone, telling someone, and saying, this isn't great. I can't. I don't think that I can just have an early finish today. And maybe just go chill out, have go have a beer or something. I don't, you get to the point where those things aren't going to work anymore. We're past that. Yeah, we're past just relax or just chill out or all the usual stuff. So
Right.
yeah, that's what I did. I told someone I could trust. So
And then I imagine with doing that, that started to unleash and started towards your journey of getting back into kind of the identity that you saw yourself, the best version of yourself physically. So, how has this journey impacted your ability to help other people in maximizing their physical stuff, right? Getting fit and lean, and getting a nickname
yeah,
like Big Will.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a cool nickname. I got to be careful though because, as I get older, it's like, am I actually that big anymore? Like, yeah, um, yeah, like everyone else is on steroids these days, so I'm like, oh man, okay, maybe I'm not so big, but yeah, so really for me, the big thing here in getting back to being Big Will and getting back to being the guy that I always identified as, and bit of a gym advocate and an exercise professional, and that guy that would always be, my physique was always doing the talking. I didn't need to speak to anybody. You would always see this guy's big, fit, strong guy. To get back there, I think there was a forceful process, definitely, where I realized that the sort of the usual medical approach to mental health issues, particularly anxiety and depression, is yes, exercise is a wonderful thing. If you feel like exercising, go for a walk, all the usual stuff. Here in the UK, we've got the NHS, and you look at the NHS advice. It is try and get as much exercise as you can, steer away from alcohol, eat as much healthy, nutritional food as possible. And these are all brilliant things. They are absolutely, the best things you can do to help yourself along the way. But what I had to do is for me personally, for my own, what I wanted, I had to be abrupt and I had to grab a hold of myself and say, do you know what, I'm done being a victim. So I had to jump back in at the deep end. Yeah, I wasn't squatting what I used to squat. Yeah, I wasn't in the same shape. I'd put on a few pounds of body fat. I'd lost a few pounds of muscle mass. My lifts and my enthusiasm and my fitness, my cardiovascular fitness was lessened. But I had to just jump back in. I wasn't going to be the guy that went for a walk. So for me, the way I did it was, and this isn't for everybody, but the way I did it was like, I've had enough of being a victim. And I just got back in the gym and I went for it. And that gave me freedom, and that gave me what I wanted. And then, the skin deep stuff, I suppose you could call it, the aesthetics of looking good with your clothes off, that crept in, that came back in. It just naturally came back in. And I was like, oh, okay, here we go. That's more of a label of me, being the strong person I want to be. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to look good. Where everybody wants to look good. We all wake up and brush our teeth in the morning. So, yeah. So that was the way I did it. That's the way I transformed back in. It was with that sort of, that high intensity approach. But I have to I've got to make sure people understand that isn't for everybody. Some people will want to do maybe they go for a walk. Maybe they, maybe they just start with some sort of home workout stuff, just doing some sit-ups and press-ups in your living room. And, that's cool. But the most important thing is whether you go into the deep end or you're just doing some circuit training at home or going for a walk, taking your dog for a walk, whatever it is you do, you've got to do something. There's only so far medication and counseling and the guy sat opposite you at the desk. There's only so much that they can do for you. And yeah, I don't want to upset anybody. This is just what I believe. That's how I saw it. I had to get angry with it and get after it and go back into the world,
So I think there's just like so much information out there when it comes to health and fitness. And you had talked about in the beginning that there's a lot of bullshit that you kind of have to sift through. Yeah. And I've found that when I've met with bullshit, then it turns me off, right? If there's so much information then if there's conflicting information here, and you don't know who to trust, then you kind of do nothing. So how can we arm the men listening to this to improve their bullshit detector? Because to sift through the good salespeople and the good marketers and actually get the results that are eluding, especially in the United States, where probably half the people are over 30% body fat, and half the men listening to this most likely have more than 30% body fat, which is not super healthy. So how can we improve their bullshit detector from a person in the industry who have seen the bullshit and you can see through it? So help the men through this topic.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it is. Firstly, it is challenging because there are a lot of very good guys and girls out there who are offering their services, and they are being very honest about the process and about the requirement for hard work, and about the requirement for consistency above all, consistency over everything. And there are some people out there who are saying, I'm here for you. I will charge because, these people need to eat, and we all get that. Everybody needs to eat and pay the bills. And those individuals, they are out there if you do seek help from a professional within the health and fitness industry. But excuse me, but I think the one that I really would persuade guys to avoid when it comes to the bullshit, as you said, and detecting bullshit, is the supplement industry. It is awash with crap. The biggest one straight off the bat is fat loss. You do not need to ingest anything and take anything on board, be it a food supplement or even crossing over into the dangerous world of things like performance-enhancing drugs, where you've got pro-hormones, peptides, SARMs, growth hormone. You've got traditional anabolic steroids. You don't want to get involved in the drugs bit. You certainly don't want to do that. And then the food supplement industry, all the stuff you see in the tubs with the glossy labels, and there's millions of companies now online selling supplements. You don't need a supplement to lose body fat. You just need to either put more work out or less energy in. Done. That's it. That's the science. You either have less energy going in your mouth or more energy going out through human movement. Walk, squat, run, drag, carry, walk your dog, do 1,000 burpees, do 1 burpee, whatever. Tip the seesaw, tip the scales. Easy. So don't buy stuff. Don't buy supplements, man. Just eat food, enjoy your life and exercise, But supplements are the big BS. For sure.
Okay, so keep an eye on the supplements. I think that for personal training, and especially since COVID and all that stuff, where it seems like there's a big rise in these Instagram influencers, right? These people who just so happen to have a 6-pack or a dump truck ass, and that people, or strong arms or whatever, toward just because they look good in a bathing suit, now all of a sudden they're an online fitness trainer, right? So how can we sort through people who actually know how to get results like you, because you're obviously working with some of the best, turning people into some of the best athletes in the country, working in the Navy, the British Navy, and improving those fitness. So how can we differentiate the people who just look the part versus the people who actually know how to coach us to success?
I think it's very important to initially build a relationship with the trainer, or build a relationship with the client, depending on what side you're on. And I think with that, if there's anybody asking you for any huge upfront fee for them to help you in any way possible, they might be teaching you how to learn Japanese. They might be teaching you how to squat twice your body weight. They might be helping you lose fat. Doesn't matter if there is someone offering you a service and it isn't a simple quantifiable product, like I want you to pay $5 for this cup. There you go. There it is, done. If it is a coaching service that involves behavioral change, and then of course, you've got inspiration, motivation, you've got the medical side of it that comes in and correcting human movement, whatever it may be. If there's an upfront fee, all I can say is I would just be very careful, because, let's say that I was going to work with you doing any sort of physical training or strength and conditioning. I wouldn't charge you anything to just build a relationship with you. And that might be a couple of weeks, that might be a month. But it all comes down to, am I right for you? Cool. And you're right for me? Cool. Because you can have bad clients in the industry. And that's probably the best way to do business, because some of these guys on Instagram with veneer teeth and, shoulders like, shoulders like coconuts, veneer teeth, they're beautiful and they make the rest of us feel like ugly, fat, middle-aged people. Some of those guys, they're out there. Yeah, some of those guys genuinely are absolutely brilliant at what they do, but they might just have that glossy coating, that social media coating that maybe turns a few people off, and people feel like, oh, I'm not sure. But you can never tell. Humans are, you've got to give someone a chance to build a relationship. So,
sure. So now I want to change directions here a little bit. So one of the things that is, I think a lot of men deal with is they hit a particular plateau, right? Where they kind of gain, and like for me, most of my life I've gained and lost the same 10 pounds, right? Like now I'm at like 245 pounds, and I'm very active. I'm working out 4 or 5 days a week. I watch what I eat. I don't really drink all that much. So these plateaus, they're really frustrating. So when you're working with people, when you see a plateau, how do you help people navigate that frustration?
It's to navigate that frustration. First and foremost, I think everybody needs to understand that if we're looking at losing weight as just a good example for this conversation, if we're looking at losing weight and we're not talking about strength or performance, size, so on and so forth, aesthetics, losing weight, in my mind, is a very simple thing to approach, because every single human being on this planet, we all store fat for the same reasons, for the same physiological reasons, and that is it's a survival tool. Our prehistoric man, had he or she not been able to store a single pound of body fat, if we were simply 0% body fat, then when food was scarcely available, we wouldn't have lasted very long. So we're now in a position where we still store body fat. We still, when we take in excess energy, we store it because it's a survival tool, and the body puts that spare tank of gas either under the skin where we don't like it. That's our subcutaneous fat that we can all see. That's our love handles and our ass and our legs, and or it's visceral fat, which we cannot see and that sits around our organs, and it can cause health complications. But understanding the science of why we store fat can help people understand how to then break through plateaus when they are unable to lose weight. And it is simple. Something needs to change. Something needs to change, as I've said before, either in your energy expenditure, either in your energy expenditure or your energy intake. There needs to be a change. The body will always, plateau is an easy way to say homeostasis, which is our body's preferred state. Our body wants to stay the same, doesn't like change. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of work for protein synthesis to take place when we're building muscle, or for us to go into a fat burning state and utilize stored fat as a fuel instead of stored carbohydrates, which is what most people working out are using. They're using carbs stored. So you understand those principles, you dial that in, you realize a plateau is all about just forcing your body out of that single solid state where nothing's changing, and then consistency. A lot of people will try and get through a plateau, and they'll go a couple of weeks, nothing's changing, they give up. It's about that relentless consistency. As a good example, you look at bodybuilders getting down to that very low body fat percentage, and it really is all about just staying true, staying on your course. You stay in that slow calorie deficit, you do the work, and eventually it will happen. There is no one human being on the planet who is immune the way our energy systems function and the way we use fat as a fuel and the way we use carbs as a fuel. It's about making the change. You decide what you're going to do. It might be, I'm going to switch from bodybuilding to CrossFit. I'm going to stoke my BMR, my basal metabolic rate. I'm going to get the heart pumping. I'm going to get the engine going. I'm going to go into the high intensity stuff, and I'm going to go into CrossFit, but then stay consistent with it and just watch. It will change. You get through it 100%.
So how do you see the difference between something like CrossFit versus the, traditional bodybuilding versus, the guy, just going to the gym and just doing traditional, cardio and maybe a little bit of general weightlifting and that kind of stuff? Like how do we sort through all these choices? Because, there's obviously, I know CrossFit's super expensive. Gym memberships are pretty expensive. And I think that men tend to beat themselves up to where if they're not going to the gym like they used to for an hour and a half, 4 or 5 days a week, what's the point of doing it at all? So, I saw on your LinkedIn you talked about the difference between high interval training and then bodybuilding. Can you talk through what you meant in that post a little bit and share maybe the differences and the benefits of each?
Yeah, I think Andrew, this is one that I really love to talk about, and you've probably got that from me already. I love to talk about the sort of the science behind anatomy and physiology and the way it all works. I love it. It's my thing. But the fundamental difference is that bodybuilding and traditional bodybuilding training, where you'll see a lot more isolation work. You'll see guys targeting single muscle groups like a bicep curl, for instance, or a lateral raise to work on the medial deltoid head for width. Bodybuilding 100% is aesthetics. That's it. Bodybuilding is all about how you look when you're on the stage. You're on a physique stage, and you're there and you're posing and you're doing your thing. There is no interest whatsoever in health, in fitness, in performance, none whatsoever. It's aesthetics. So if people want to look better naked by dialing in their nutrition and going into a bodybuilding training routine, then yes, certainly we're looking at aesthetics. And of course, with that comes a certain rep range, certain rest periods, certain sets, tempo, and a big focus on eccentric training, which I can go into later. I think I'm going to spare you the strength and conditioning classroom lesson. But bodybuilding is about how you look, whereas we've seen this huge rise of CrossFit. Everybody remembers Rich Froning and Dan Bailey, who's one of the guys that I sort of keep an eye on because I think he's pretty impressive stuff. And then the latest champ was Matt Frazier. And I think most Americans will know Matt Frazier. He's the CrossFit champ, and he's walked away. I don't know who's in charge with it now. It's probably Noah Olson or something. But CrossFit, of course, is performance. CrossFit is what can you do, and something I heard years ago that really makes me smile is nice body, but what can you do with it? And CrossFit is all about performance. But of course, when you're chasing performance and you're chasing how fast can I run, how hard can I run, can I swim, can I snatch, can I clean and jerk, how much can I back squat, and you're sticking it together and the intensity is there, then you will get a crossover where you are likely to look aesthetic as long as your nutrition is where it needs to be, which is why a lot of the best professional CrossFit athletes on the planet, male and female, they all look like bodybuilders. They look incredible. But it's just clear that people need to understand that those seeking bodybuilding only, those doing your classic splits, they're training chest, the heart rate doesn't ever get into that red zone, rarely into the red zone. It doesn't really have any carryover into the performance world. You can build your body without having a big, strong, powerful body. It doesn't. Those two things, performance and aesthetics, they're members of the same family, but they don't directly correlate. So that's the fundamental difference. Guys definitely need to be aware of, do they want to look better naked whilst being fitter, healthier, and giving themselves a better chance of living to 100, or do they want to just look fantastic on the beach? That's kind of how it is. Aesthetics versus health. And excuse me, I've no idea what's happening with my voice. Aesthetics versus performance and health. That's the difference, between high intensity functional training and isolation and bodybuilding.
So you had mentioned something that I'm very curious about, is living to 100. And I saw a recent TikTok video, and it was a scientist. He was talking about how, listing off all of these famous athletes that died earlier. And he attributed early, like 50s, 60s, that kind of stuff. And he attributed it to the fact that these athletes sweat 100x more than the average person. And when you sweat, you lose all these essential minerals, right? And most people aren't replacing these minerals. So he called it like this mineral soup. You sweat out, and no matter how much water you drink, they're not replacing those key minerals. So with that little bit of story I just shared, what is your reaction to this guy's proclamation?
I mean, first and foremost, if I saw that video now, I guess my question would be, is this guy a doctor? Is he a medical professional? I think we need to tread carefully when it comes to TikTok, especially.
I mean, he was a researcher. I mean, he had accreditation, that kind of stuff, and it was a well-researched presentation, right?
Yeah.
So
cool.
I guess my main premise of my question is, how do we replace the minerals that we lose in our sweat, and which I believe sounds like it increases longevity from this perspective. But I mean, I'm just consuming information and spitting it back out again. You're the expert here, so
sorry, no, and I'm certainly I certainly don't want to come across as defensive. I think we've all got to be very careful when we listen to advice.
I agree.
That smiling face on the internet, especially YouTube, TikTok. It's there's a lot of guys out.
I saw it on the internet, so it must be true.
Yeah, for sure. I think from my and obviously I am not a doctor. I'm a very experienced, very qualified physical training instructor, and the only thing I can comment on is that no one wants to be dehydrated. That's one thing, fluid and dehydration. And then when it comes to minerals, I suppose it's important to know that if you are sweating a lot, you're doing a lot of maybe you're doing a lot of endurance stuff, and you are sweating, pouring with sweat. I suppose that the best guess I've got here is that you would need to make sure that you were leaning on a solid diet with a good focus on your micronutrition, which of course that's your nutrients, that's your vitamins and minerals. So making sure you're getting those micros in as well as the macros, as well as your proteins, fats and carbs. And if you were really concerned, I would say there's probably a hell of a lot of sort of good electrolyte anti-dehydration kind of products out there. A lot of them are like kind of a salty tasting sachet you can put in your water bottle. And I think as an insurance policy, if you were thinking that was a thing, you could make sure you were getting involved in an electrolyte supplement perhaps. But I mean, I've been training for a long time, and I've never given it too much thought. Dehydration is a big one, but mineral loss. Yeah, no, it's a good question, because I mean, mineral loss, I don't think I've ever really given it too much thought. You just try and eat as much as you can of the good stuff and drink water, and that's it. Yeah,
I don't know, man. I just saw it, so I thought it'd be something to throw your way. So, man,
it's
we're
interesting.
coming near yeah, for sure. Yeah, I like just sourcing that information and throwing it out there and see what comes back at me. So. We're coming near the end of the episode, so I always like to make sure we invest some time to answer these two questions. So the first one is one of my favorites. What does it mean to be a man to you?
Wow, what does it mean to be a man to me? Well, I'm not going to go into the biological explanation. Yeah, I've got that one nailed. Yeah, I was born a man. Yeah, this is gonna piss some people off. I was born a man. I still am a man. So I've got that bit down from the anatomy and physiology perspective. But I think a man is someone that is sure of himself, and someone that knows where he is going and what he wants to do with his life, and doesn't let this all of this noise, all of this bullshit, silence what it is that you really want to do. I mean, there's a lot of it now. A lot of men are being targeted today with talk of things like toxic masculinity and talking about misogyny, etc. And I think that I think we just need to stand our ground and just do what it is that you want to do. And yeah, I mean, that's what it is for me. It's just doing what I love and staying on the course and chasing happiness, making sure my family are happy, making sure my wife and my little boy are happy. And that's it. That's being a man for me, I guess.
Cool. So the other question I have is asking you to put your professorial hat on and give the men homework over the next 7 days. And
Okay.
what can they do to get some quick wins, some momentum, kind of like those baby steps you talked about? So over the
Yeah.
next 7 days, what is something they can do to get some quick wins in their life? What's their homework?
Homework. Write down what you want. Write it down. I've spent a career in the military learning that everything is all about smart objectives, bullet points, pen, paper, planning. Everything is always document, plan it, get it down on paper. So whether it's a business strategy and you're looking to be a CEO of your own business idea, you've got something that you want to put together, or whether it's that you want to lose weight, get in shape, whatever it may be. You might want to sort your finances out. You might want to be a better father. You might want to finally have the courage to go and speak to your doctor about anxiety or depression. Whatever it is, write it down, have a clear-cut plan, and make sure that it's all measurable. Make sure that everything is not just a piece of paper that lives on the fridge. So, get it all down and get some dates in there. Where do you want to be this time next week, this time next month, this time next year? Get it written down and know where you're going with your life, because, we're running out of time. People are running out of time. We are, it's you got to get it done. You got to get in there. You got to take action. What do you want? Pen and paper, write it down. When do you want to achieve it by,
I mean, I really appreciate that answer, because I think that I don't know how often men sit and ask themselves, what do I want? Because I feel like society is trying to force us to give up what we want, to do things because other people want us to do them, or to not do things because we're worried about offending some person's feelings on the internet or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think that's just really sound advice. So I appreciate you sharing that. So, Will, if the men want to kind of continue this dialogue, want to start building that relationship with you, is LinkedIn the best place for them to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is the only place I live when it comes to social media. It's the only place I am. I don't have anything else. And yeah, I think it's important for people to know that they should be able to reach out to people like me with absolutely no cost, no charge. I'm always happy to talk to someone about getting in shape or helping out with anything, within the exercise and fitness sphere. So yeah, LinkedIn.
Cool.
For sure.
All right, man. I'll add his LinkedIn to the show notes. And if you want to become a big, strong, lean machine without giving up the foods that you love, Will can help you out with that, man. So I appreciate you being here. Will, I just want to just honor you for a second, because I know that the world, I mean, you've gone through a lot of transitions recently. We shared before we jumped on the podcast. So I just want to honor you for the prioritizing yourself and leaning into yourself and leading your family and leading in your life and seeking those moments when it was super hard and fighting through that identity change and fighting through what would have been the easy way out. Where I think a lot of men, they see themselves drifting away from their identity and they just have a case of the fuck it's and saying, well, this is who I am now. That's who I was then. And that's how it's always going to be, right? So I just want to honor you for your dedication and your investment and for the future men that you will be impacting and growing and improving their bodies and their health, because I think that's super important as we, a lot of who we are as men are attributed to how strong our discipline is and how strong we are inside, and that can be reflected outside. So I appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for your time.